Get Unstuck Nation. So today I welcome my lovely friend right here to join Get Unstuck Radio for the second time. Please welcome Todd Palmer, CEO of Extraordinary Advisor. Todd is an executive coach, keynote speaker, renowned thought leader, author, and CEO who is committed to helping business owners tackle their obstacles and clear their path to success. And today, of course, this is special timing for him because his second book is coming out, actually out today, From Sucks to Success, a guide to extraordinary entrepreneurship. Thank you so much for joining Get Unstuck Radio today for the second time, Todd.
Oh, the timing couldn't be better. Thank you so much for having me back on your program. And I'm super excited to talk about the new book coming out today. We're doing a Kindle program where we're selling the book for 99 cents. So anybody who sees this and wants to get a copy on February 9th, please go to Amazon, look up Suck to Success, or go to my website, sucktosuccess.com, or my other website, extraordinaryadvisors.com. There'll be links to drive everybody to the book. And I'm happy to, anybody who doesn't like the book and you spend 99 cents on it, email me at Todd at Extraordinary Advisors and I will PayPal you your $1 back. You'll actually make a penny because that's how confident I am in the book. I've got some incredible reviews from people. It's been just, it's kind of a bit of a whirlwind in what's going on. And I've got some great talent in the book. I've got Brian Scudamore from 1-800-GOT-JUNK. I've got Dr. Danny Friedland from Living Well From Within is in there. A ton of people have contributed to the book, and I'm super excited that you had me back on today.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have to say that it's like at the right timing of the world crisis as well, right? Like everyone stay at home and have to figure out actually what success means for them, like what right now their life really means and what they really want in their life further to have the success. So I think your book just at the right timing.
Well, it took 5 years to write, so I certainly don't think someone to think that I just started writing this during the pandemic. But here's where the pandemic was actually a real benefit to my coaching practice. So when I retired as a CEO nearly 4 years ago, the book was 80% done. I've been working this thing for now. It took about 5 years to complete it. And then I was going to be traveling the world last year. I was going to be on 6 different stages, speaking to my audience about getting unstuck, taking them from suck to success. And all those gigs got canceled. You know how that goes. And it freed up a lot of time for me. And like a lot of people probably are listening today, my itty bitty shitty committee started screaming at me that I'm never going to achieve what I want. I'm missing out on my ideal audience. And I had to deal with that for a couple of days. And so what I did was really got quiet and I looked within and I'm like, why am I even doing all this? I'm retired. I've got more than I could ever hope to enjoy in this world. But I do it because I want to improve lives. 12 years ago, I worked with Simon Sinek. Over 2 years, I came up with the 2 words, improve lives. And thought, how can I improve lives during my current reality? Because my current reality was taking me away from the stages, taking me away from the audiences. So I decided that the best way for me to do that was 2 things. I did a lot of servant leadership volunteering. I spoke with 42 CEOs in 67 days for free to help them get unstuck through some networks like EO, YPO, Vistage that I'm affiliated with. And the second thing is that I said, you know what, I'm going to finish this book. I've got the time, because ultimately, one of the things I found that really helps entrepreneurs, CEOs, leaders, parents, even kids get unstuck is to do the best we can and recognize something's happening for us, not to us. So I decided that for me, and it was an internal decision, the pandemic's happening for me and not to me. And the craziest thing was, I did all those volunteering. This is so funny. 42 CEOs, 67 days. I got 0 clients from it, from those people that I spoke with. But from those, I've got referred to people in their network, and my coaching practice has tripled since March of last year. And so, so be careful what you ask for, you just might get it. And I got super busy and I'm trying to complete the book. And all these great things are happening to me during what would be considered for most people, a very tough time in our history. And again, I'm so thankful to my coach. So I coach and I use a coach. His name is Daniel Friedland. He's out of San Diego, California. And we talk a lot about try to pivot things, reformat things happening to us or happening for us, not to us. And that was something and I talk about it throughout the course of the book. So the book was 80% done. And I started dropping in COVID stories. in pandemic stories of how working with other leaders and even some of my self work to get unstuck during those tough times. So, I appreciate you reading the book. I appreciate you recognizing that it's of hopefully going to be of great service to people listening on your show and around the globe during these tough times.
Yeah, one of the things that's very stand out at the very first thing is that you say that extraordinary has been the word that's starting to be meaningless right now, and
Yes.
you want to change
Yes.
that. My company also named Extraordinarily by Mutita, and I know that each person are different and each person have their own extraordinary
Right.
life. But why
Right.
each person not really taking that so serious, because they have only one life to live, right? I so
They
much agree with you on that.
Yeah, well, it was very frustrating to me. I love music. I love movies. I love the performing arts. I really I appreciate anyone who creates something from nothing, whether it's entrepreneurship, music, movies, whatever. But then we flip into pop culture. And in the pop culture world of TikTok and Instagram and awards shows and all those things, you see someone win an award or get an accolade that they probably worked very hard to receive. I don't begrudge them for that. But then they go on stage and say how awesome this is and how everybody is extraordinary in their lives and it was an extraordinary experience. Then they win again and it's extraordinary and they win again. By the time they win their fifth award or they've got this going on or that going, they use extraordinary so often, I felt the word became minimized.
Mm.
And I felt it was important to reclaim that word because it's an important word if used appropriately, if used correctly. Because if you want to build an extraordinary life or an extraordinary business, it's a singular event. It's a singular choice. Extraordinary to me may be very different than extraordinary to you. I know when I was getting started, an extraordinary business for me as an entrepreneur, as I had to have a $20 million staffing business. That was the only definition of what extraordinary meant to me. Well, that was a formula for failure. It was very singular. Today, in 2021, an extraordinary life to me is a successful life. And a successful life is doing what I want, where I want, as often as I want, with whomever I want to do it with. And whether that's talking to you today, this could be an extraordinary conversation if I show up and I deliver what you need and your audience gets value from it. And I can go have an extraordinary walk in the snow this afternoon with my family because that's an extraordinary moment we're going to create together. So it's that intentionality, like I talk about in the book, intention, not expectation, of what extraordinary can mean to anyone listening today.
Yeah, I couldn't stress enough. I mean, anyone who listening right now, you know that I keep saying that when I say get unstuck, mean that you have to decide what you really want in life and you have to push your life first because you don't know what's gonna happen. Next minute is the future already, and we should live without regret, right? So appreciate every single moment and create that moment with intention. You just nail it right there.
Well, I think, but there's a way to do that. And I'm sure you know this, but maybe your audience doesn't know it. And I talk about it throughout the book. And it's really using the active learning cycle. I call it the E4 process. And
Mm-hmm.
with the active learning cycle, like you said, you recognize and you have intentionality around something. So you recognize what's not working for you. So, and I've talked about this in your show last time. When I was 10 years into my entrepreneurial journey, I was $600,000 in debt. The bank called the note. I was going to lose my house. My kid and I were going to be homeless. I had a lot going on in my head. My itty bitty shitty committee had 600,000 reasons to meet with me and beat on me. I decided I needed help. So I hired a coach. And in the process of hiring that coach, we had to change the tape in my head. We had to change that doom loop. So the first thing I had to recognize was I had to identify that beating myself up was not working anymore. I had to identify being in debt was not something I no longer wanted. First thing. Second thing for me is I had to create an intention of what I did want. My intention was I want to be out of debt. My intention was I want to honor my commitments to my vendors, to my bank. I want to honor the commitments to my child. I couldn't have expectations of how that was going to happen because then I would be shut down. Expectations are win or lose. Intention creates massive creativity. So then I created a strategy around that intention of how to get out of debt. The first strategy didn't work. The second strategy didn't work. The third strategy had some ideas, but completely, by the time we got to our 20th strategy within diversified industrial staffing, we got momentum. But we had to go to the fourth step and we had to get help. We had to iterate. We had to put it into practice. We had to keep what worked, got rid of what didn't. And we had to pivot into a different space. So we had to go back to the top of the loop. Well, what was working? We came up with a literally a fail forward award within the organization. So we didn't reward the employee who had the most success that week. We had rewarded the employee who had the most quote unquote failures that week because they were learning, they were iterating. Within 8 years, we get out of debt, paid off all $800,000. We hockey sticked the business. We grew it like a rocket ship, made the Inc. 5000 as one of the fastest growing companies in the United States 6 times, and took care of a lot of things. And I realized, like, when someone wants to hire me as a coach, they'll say, I want to hire you as my coach because I want to be in the Inc. 5000 6 times. I'm not the coach for that. That was a byproduct of, like you talked about, getting unstuck, a byproduct of having intention, not expectation, a byproduct of massive iteration. That was really part of the being on the list was a happy accident. It was never the goal.
Yeah. So since you mentioned that in the book, you mentioned about it's the thin line between success and success. What is that thin line is about? Like people not really understand that there's just like one line across that you just have to like cross this and then you will get it already. Why you stop?
So this is, you know, in every problem in life, and this is just truly my experience, it is a people problem. It's a people problem. It's in business, it's in personal, it's a people problem. But I argue, and I put this premise out in the book, the biggest gap between suck and success is your internal mindset. There's 8 chapters in the book. Half of it is devoted to changing your mindset, teaching people how to do that, learning how to self-coach, learning how to self-process, to be able to go from something happening for me versus have it happening to me. I think it. So when you get the book, you're going to notice that the beginning of the book is a foreword from my coach, Dr. Daniel Friedland. The end of the book is a closeout in my tribute to him, and my epilogue to him. And the best way I can teach this to somebody, because I'm sure someone's watching it and saying, this guy's crazy. You know, the pandemic is happening to me. It's not happening for me. Or, you know, this part of my life happened to me, not for me. So I'm going to tell you everybody a story about Dr. Danny Friedland. November 15th of 2020, Dr. Danny Friedland was diagnosed with stage 4 brain cancer. And in that stage 4 brain cancer, he had some choices to make. And he called me and shared with me the choices he made on the 17th. So 2 days later. And I'm watching him on the screen, just like I'm watching you. And he's super calm. He's telling me I have stage 4 brain cancer. The runway of my life has been compressed and reduced significantly. Now, he knows this because he's literally a medical doctor who studies the brain. So he knows what the diagnosis means to his lifespan. I was devastated. I'm like, I'm emotional and he's calm. And I said, help me better understand what you went through. Help me better understand what you're going through and help me better understand how you're going to live the rest of your life. Teach me. He was brilliant about it. He goes, for 2 days, I was definitely wrapped up in fear. No doubt about it, which again made him, I love it when a powerful leader like him, I mean, he coaches the conscious capitalism guys, he coaches the whole food guys, and he happens to coach me. I mean, there's these rock stars, and then I'm like this opening act band in his world, in my mind. And then he pivots into, I met with my family. I have decided that cancer is happening for me, not to me. Cancer is going to be the defining moment of my life, and it's going to be the biggest piece of my legacy. Now, he's got about 15 months plus or minus left. And he is on fire. He's created a YouTube channel. On that YouTube channel, he checks in every day. He's literally teaching people how to live their best life for the rest of their life when their lifespan has been shortened. Essentially, how do we die? His family's in contributing content. He's got them involved in the process. He's sharing stories. They're sharing stories of what it's like to potentially lose a family member. And it's just like a Netflix series. You know, I got to watch every day. What's going to happen now? And that, to me, if we can all slow down the monkeys in our mind, slow down our stuck, and recognize that a lot of what life happens is really happening for us to teach us, that allows us to teach back to the world. That's, I think, the real gap between suck versus success.
Yeah. Wow, that's so powerful. I think that's also something that very true, that you have to accept what really happened with yourself first, right? Being authentic, like something that you always promote in your speech, in your story, whatever you always say, that accept who you really are and be real with yourself.
And that's really hard to do. I mean, it's really hard to do, when I call it ATV, authentic, transparent, and vulnerable. And I dealt with so many of those 42 CEOs who were just struggling to be vulnerable for their teams. And they didn't want to look like a weak leader. I didn't want to look like I didn't, I had one leader say, I don't have any answers. What do I say? Because if I say I don't know anything, I feel like it erodes my position within the organization. It's the direct opposite. When a leader gets on a video or gets on a Zoom call and communicates with their teams, and they share with them, here's where we are, here's where I'd like us to be going. There's a gap. I'm not sure how we're going to close that gap. We're getting government funding. We've applied. We're not sure what our clients are doing. But I see you guys. I care about all of you. Please reach out to me. I'm a resource to you. It gives people an amazing sense of calm, because in the absence of communication, and leaders need to understand this, when we don't share what's going on, even the bad news or the uncertain news, employees, the teams we work with, the people who work with us are going to fill in those gaps of information with their own narratives. And in their narratives, they're going to fill it in most likely with the worst case scenario. I've had people say, I sent a text to my boss and they didn't get back to me. I'm probably going to get fired. Like, where did that come from? Like, huh? Well, that's what it was. And you talk to the boss, he's like, I'm on a plane, so I can't text anybody. And then I had 3 meetings when I landed, and I'll get back to you within 24 hours. It's just, my company's going to close. We're all going to be laid off. I'm going to lose all the itty bitty shitty committee that I would do. In the absence of information, we fill in the narrative because it gives our brain something to chew on. Well, why don't we as leaders show up, be authentic, transparent, vulnerable, share with what we know, share with what we don't know, include everybody in the conversation. Millennials love that stuff. Include us in the conversation. Let's talk through options and ideas on what we can do to get unstuck in our company.
I think humans in general like to speak about themselves, but actually not.
Well, I certainly know I will tell you this, and this is an old recruiter trick. I know everybody's favorite word. Everybody has the same favorite word. Everybody's favorite word is their name. And if you just drop that into conversations, people will get them going. I really think that people do love to speak. People do love to fill in that space of dead air. Great leaders, in my experience, do a couple of things with that. They speak last within their leadership teams, and they listen to absorb the conversation, not to respond. Because when I'm listening to respond, I'm already building a case to come back at you for whatever you said. Where if I listen to absorb, I take it in, I process that, 30 seconds, then I'm able to come back and give a much more thoughtful answer. And when I give a person speaking to me a thoughtful, well-placed answer, or I come back with a really well thought out question to what they've just said, does 2 things. We help them be seen, and we help them be heard. And especially in these times right now of disconnect, the more connection we can create, even through a Zoom call or a conversation where people feel like they're seen and heard, it really does change things.
Do you think this involves to the ego, both for leader side and also the follower side?
Well, when I think of ego, I have to look in the mirror. So pride and ego, from me at least, prevented me from getting help when my business was crashing. Pride and ego will tell us we can do whatever. We don't need the rest of the world. I've noticed during the pandemic that there's been this push around people dealing with alcoholism, with drug addiction, especially entrepreneur leaders that I know. And there's this thought process that I've really seen. It's just been so powerful. It's called COVID sobriety, of all things. And in the COVID sobriety, people are getting help, and they're putting aside their pride and ego, and they're recognizing and realizing that there's a big link sometimes between the behavior of an entrepreneur and the behavior of someone with an addiction problem. And so if you look at it, both of those people, the entrepreneur in crisis or the person with an addiction problem, they really do need help. I mean, I can appreciate that people are going to say, I can do what I need to do. I can stop when I want to stop, or I can go grow my business without help. The reality is this: we all have limits. We all have strengths and we have limitations. I had them. I can tell my family will tell you this. My list of strengths are about 3. My list of limits are about 100. We all have them. It's when a coach comes in and we look at someone's hero's journey, from above. We're their guide of their journey. We can help them figure out, hey, you've got some limitations in this area, or you've got some teammates on your team that need to be coached up or coached out. You've got some challenges on how you run your day. Same thing with someone who's got an addiction problem. Is someone who's been there, done that, survived that, is going to have a different perspective. So I think what people can get from is that they're willing to, and it takes some self-awareness, which most of us have limited amounts of, to get that help and put that pride and ego aside. So when you say pride and ego, I really think it's one of our biggest detriments in how we show up every day.
Yeah. And asking for help is something like stop you from moving forward. Actually, that's like from many perspective though, like from health perspective, from personal growth perspective as well. Like asking for help is something like I think they may, I mean, I used to feel that way as well. Like I have to bother someone to help me.
Well, it's a humility play too. It's like I have to recognize and I have to be humble enough to ask for help. It's also important, I think, to ask the right people for help.
Mm.
So if I've got a client going through this right now. They have an employee who's kind of a pot stirrer, and what they'll do is get the entire company riled up around her drama and around her perspective and her being a victim or a martyr, and she'll get people in the organization to co-sign, to sign off. Oh yes, you are the victim. Yes, you are the martyr. We feel so bad for you, and they create this little tribe of drama. That's not helpful. No one grows from that. No one heals from that, and it's important, I think, for people to recognize that some of the greatest growth we can do in a company, the greatest growth we can do within our families even, is self-growth. It's like the airport say, put your mask on first before putting the mask on your kids. If you're a leader, and you can be a leader in your family, not just a leader in your business. If you're a leader and people rely on you and people depend on you, and you're going out and getting the wrong people to give you information, the wrong people to support you, you're going to be not putting the oxygen mask on. The right people are the people who are able to give you insights that maybe you're missing, to shine a light on your blind spots. And they're able to, with love, care, and compassion, help you be the best version of you. No one's perfect, but if we can help people get to the best versions of themselves, their resources are going to rise. And as demands come at that level, they're going to be able to handle them. We get into chaos and crisis as leaders when the demands exceed our resources. We're like, oh my gosh, I'm not enough. Oh my gosh, the world wants more from me than I can give. And it just, that gap becomes wider. If, as leaders, we can practice self-care and self-compassion, and we have people in our tribes, we are known by the 5 most people we spend the most time with. And if you're spending time with people who are bringing you down, you're spending time with people who are feeding you negativity. We don't need people to tell you. I don't need people to tell me how great I am, but I need people to say, hey, listen, you got broccoli in your teeth. You should probably go clean your teeth out because you have to go appear on the podcast this morning. And let's, I don't want to show up looking like a complete disheveled mess versus the people who say, you look great in everything you wear. No, that's not genuine. We want people who are going to support us the way we best need to be supported. And that doesn't mean always agreeing with us.
Mm-hmm. And that's why you mentioned in the book about empowering yourself with people who surrounding you, because an entrepreneur alone is an entrepreneur at risk. I just quote that. So yeah, that's like, even though by definition entrepreneur means risk taker, but you cannot be alone. Like, seriously.
We should talk about that for a second, because taking a risk is inherent to being an entrepreneur.
Mm.
There's irresponsible risk and there's calculated risk. There's still risk. So, and I've explained this to my clients kind of this way. An irresponsible risk taker is someone who gets a brand new Porsche sports car and they get in it and they drive 120 miles an hour without a seatbelt. That's an irresponsible risk taker. Here's a responsible risk taker. They get a Porsche, they drive it at the speed limit, but here's the key that they never, it takes them a while to grasp. They don't drive that way when they're solo in their car. They drive that way when their kids are in the car, when others depend on them. We actually psychologically do more for others than we will for ourselves. We're actually more responsible and we mitigate risk when other people are involved, not just flying solo. So an entrepreneur alone really is an entrepreneur risk. So part of the mindset shift becomes, how do we get them to recognize that you were never really alone? Even if say you're a single person, unless you're truly a solopreneur who just builds, yeah, the reality is you're never alone. So even if you're not, I was going to say, even if you're an entrepreneur who builds software for someone else is using that software.
Yeah.
Or you're someone, you're a solo practitioner who lives in a cave without internet. The reality is, as an entrepreneur, you're providing a service to someone somewhere. So you're never really alone. So the reality becomes, if we recognize that we are a global community, if we recognize that what we provide goes to someone, we're never really alone. What we do is we kid ourselves and we say, I'm alone, I'm isolated, I'm worthless, right? That's the person who needs to recognize that their imposter syndrome screaming at them, and that imposter syndrome is wrong because you have value. You haven't defined maybe what that value can be. And if you have a client who fires you, or your spouse leaves you, you still have value. And it's important to recognize that you're not alone. You're only alone if you choose to be alone. There's groups like EO, SCORE. There's 12-step programs for whomever's listening today. You don't have to be alone. And not everybody can afford to hire a coach, and I understand that. But I'm seeing now all these wonderful mastermind groups popping up on Facebook and Clubhouse and social media outlets. Go find a tribe to be part of. Don't choose to be alone.
Yeah, find the one that you feel comfortable being with and challenge you to go further as well. Not like,
well, like you were talking about, the group that's going to challenge you to get unstuck, not the group that's going to keep pushing you down.
Of course, yeah. Not like those who like keep you remain the same thing and everything cherish you all the time. Like, that's not challenging.
No, well, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, that's the definition of insanity.
Sure, 100%. I think the last one that I want to touch base is about, as a leaders, right? To say sorry for themselves, sorry for their teamwork, or sorry for their other stakeholder, or even the clients, is hard, especially in the hard time. So leaders strategically planning moving forward as a CEO in the hard time, like how would you guide them to have this successful life?
Well, I think it's hard for any human being to say they're sorry. Whether it's to your significant other, to your clients, to your kids, to yourself. And as we're coming out of the pandemic, which I really feel like we are, the world is going to look differently. It's going to be different. And when we sincerely apologize to someone, it does shift their energy. When we sincerely share, when we own our part in that process, and then we offer to make amends, it shifts the energy, it shifts the room. It's so important for leaders to recognize that we're going to make decisions that aren't always popular. That's okay. If a leader can make a decision that's for the best interest of the totality, the best interest of the company, not the best interest of the leader, not the best interest maybe of their internal tribe, maybe their leadership team or their favorite employee, whatever. Or I've had leaders do this. They make a decision that's for the best interest of their family because they need the money versus the business needs the money. It's important for them to recognize that it goes back to what we talked about earlier. It's always a people issue. It's the person making the decision. And if the leader makes the wrong decision, or they make a decision that doesn't work, the quicker they own that, the quicker they clear that out, the magic happens there. Because when we don't own our stuff, when we don't apologize, when we don't own our contribution, what happens is people resent us. And resentment is one of the key factors in the erosion of any relationship. And people are typically not taught on how to clear that out of a room. It's so interesting that you asked that question, because I just worked with a group in Texas. They have been together, oh my gosh, 8 years. The resentments were building. The infighting was happening. They brought me in to facilitate the opportunity for healing. To heal, we have to say we're sorry. To heal, we have to be seen and heard. To heal, we have to talk about resentments. And that's really hard work for people to do. And it's uncomfortable work. And in our world today of instant gratification, our world of I call it the microwave society. You know, we stand at the microwave, push a minute, like hurry up, I'm hungry. And maybe you should have thought about that 2 minutes ago, not 1 minute ago. We want that instant gratification. Hard work is uncomfortable. Hard work takes time. I was with this group for almost a little over 3 hours, helping them clear out ick, clear out the layers of resentments, the history they all brought to this conversation. Then magic happened. Someone said they were sorry. I'm sorry too. I didn't understand you were going through this. I thought all the assumptions, again, in the gap of information, people fill in what they want. Someone got emotional. Someone started tearing up, and they talked about how much they cared for each other. Because really, we all work in tribes, believe it or not. Even if we work remotely, we can still work as a team. And these people, to their credit, took years of pain, years of discomfort, years of ick, and cleared the room and started anew. They were actually stronger having gone through those tough times. So when a leader says they're sorry, whether it's to your team, to your shareholders, to your stakeholders, and you clear that room and people are seen and heard, that's the magic.
Yeah. And that's everyone. That is from sucks to success. So
Yes.
Todd, in case anyone wants to work with you or follow you or buy the book from you, where can they reach out to you then?
Oh gosh. So anybody who wants to buy the book, please go to the website From Suck to Success, or Extraordinary Advisors. It'll be on both websites. Again, today on February 9th, 2021, the book's going to be 99 cents. After that, the price goes up, and the hard copy will be out within 30 days. So this is the Kindle version, just in case anybody wants to be clear about it. And like I said, you buy it, you don't like it, I'll give you your $1 back. I'm happy. I want people to feel like they can buy it with a money back guarantee. It's $1. I'll be fine. If anybody is interested in learning more about how I coach, or anybody's stuck, I guess let's stay there. If anybody's currently stuck and you're hearing the conversation, and you're thinking, wow, I wish I could talk to Todd, email me, todd@extraordinaryadvisors.com. Mention that you heard me on today's show, and I will give you 30 minutes of my time for free. I've had people use that offer, and we've talked about being stuck in there with their kids, stuck in their business. I had one person reach out to me saying, I'm going to file bankruptcy. I just need to tell somebody because I'm so full of shame and guilt. They were on the call for an hour, found money, and they're still in business today. So the power of reaching out to a community that cares about you is what I'm here for, because it really goes into, and some people are like, why would you do that? Here's the gift it gives me. It allows me to live my purpose. I can improve someone's life through a conversation. Oh my gosh, what a great use of time. What a great use of my time here on the planet. So that's why I do that. So please don't overthink it. Don't let your itty bitty shitty committee tell you don't call. I'm not going to solicit you. I'm not going to try to engage you in a coaching environment. I've had 2 coaches in my life, Greg and Danny, and this is my chance to pay them back for all the help they've given me since 2006.
Yeah, I'm so appreciate that we share the same value, Todd. And thank you so much for joining the Get Unstuck Radio again today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been my pleasure to be here.
Hey, thank you for watching this episode. If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe here or here. And this is the previous episode. Check it out. See you next time.